The story opens with a man named Will arriving in Spain, eager to see his family for a long-awaited vacation. His father, Martin, greets him warmly, and the two begin their journey to a waiting boat. Along the way, Will's phone rings with a work call, but he respectfully requests a short pause, knowing that his work calls frequently annoy his father. When they arrive at their destination, Will's mother, Lori, his younger brother Josh, and Josh's girlfriend, Darrow, all embrace him warmly. The entire family is overjoyed because they are looking forward to sharing a nice supper together. As they sit around the table, the two brothers chat about their youth, when they traveled frequently due to their father's job. Lori is delighted to have her entire family together, and they begin their evening with a touching toast. However, the mood lightens when Josh brings up an amusing episode from Will's past, causing everyone to giggle. However, this happy time is abruptly cut short as Will receives a worrisome phone call. He appears solemn, and the gloom spreads to everyone else. Finally, he tells his family the tragic news that his company is going bankrupt. Everyone falls silent, and doubt hangs in the air as May considers what may happen next. He travels alone to the beach. Later after dinner, Will attempts to make amends for ruining the pleasant mood earlier. He apologizes to his father Martin for the difficult circumstance he's in. In a touching talk, Martin expresses his regret to Will, recognizing how tough this is for his kid. The next day, the family is out at sea, but Will is riveted to his continually ringing phone. He unwillingly assists with piloting the boat till they eventually drop anchor. But Will can't stop thinking about his phone, which causes some friction when Martin urgently needs him to take control of the boat. Just suddenly, a swift speedboat comes perilously close to their yacht. Will is unaware of the danger, and his lack of attention causes the boat to drift aimlessly due to the wind. Martin panics and yells at him just in time, preventing a major crash that may have injured Darrow. Will's phone rings again in the midst of the turmoil, but Martin immediately throws it into the ocean. This causes them to debate loudly, and Will makes a bold decision. He dives into the sea and swims towards the town, hoping to find some serenity. As their emotions boil over, Will rushes to the pharmacy to obtain some antiseptic for Darrow's wound before heading to fetch a drink to soothe his thirst. Martin began to feel apprehensive as he stood on the coast, looking out at the big ocean. The same menacing motorboat passed by again, making him even more concerned. Will returned to the shore after a short while, but there was no sign of the family's yacht. He tried to ask the locals on the sandy shore for assistance, but they spoke quickly in Spanish, and he couldn't understand them. Determined, he entered the waves and approached a group of young people, believing they could help him. Unfortunately, their words were as difficult to comprehend as the sounds of the sea. Will felt a growing anxiety in his heart, wondering if his family had left him behind by accident. He proceeded along the coast to obtain a better view, and in the soft moonlight, he noticed the yacht drifting alone. When he got on board, he sensed something was seriously wrong. The boat had no power, and his family had left. Will, feeling desperate, went to the local police station for assistance. Inside, he discovered police officers playing cards and paying little attention to him. This made him even more frustrated. Finally, he was able to explain his dilemma to the station's captain, who, upon hearing Will's name, placed a call. The skipper now appeared anxious and instructed Will to show them where the stranded yacht was. Under cover of darkness, the police officers and Will set out to find the boat's last known location. However, their path led them to a stranger who claimed to know Will and offered to help him find his family. Will felt suspicious and attempted to flee. The officers stopped him, and he battled. Will eventually managed to get free and run away. He seized a police car and rushed away into the night, with the authorities pursuing him. The chase continued until police officers cornered Will, forcing him to smash the stolen automobile. They began beating him hard just as it appeared there was no chance. Martin, Will's father, emerged unexpectedly and quickly beat the intruders, saving his son. Will stood up with Martin's help, startled but grateful for his life. He frantically asked Martin where Josh and his mother were, but Martin had no answers. With a sad heart, he divulged a huge secret. He was a CIA operative. He feared that something from his past had returned to haunt them, putting their family in peril. He kept apologizing, each time sounding more earnest and vowing to reunite the family. He answered his cell phone in hushed tones, a message from his CIA contact instructing him to meet in secret. Martin didn't reveal many information, but he did take Will to one of his safe homes, where they could hide from the violence that was building. Martin eventually directed Will to drive him to a meeting site where their squad commander, Karak, was waiting. They had no idea that a quiet sniper was getting ready with a rifle at the meeting point. Will and Martin arrived at the location, and Martin urged his son to wait in the car. But before leaving, Dad expressed his sentiments to Will, telling him how proud he was of the amazing son he had become. Martin approached Kirak, feeling suspicious and wondering whether she had arranged this perilous circumstance. Martin revealed the truth when he claimed that the individuals they obtained the suitcase from had kidnapped his family and threatened to hurt them if they did not return the briefcase within 24 hours. Kirak, on the other hand, said that the briefcase had vanished, forcing Martin to seek a solution. Martin was walking back to his car with a sad heart when he was shot by a sniper. He died. Will, overcome with astonishment and despair, crawled closer to his fallen father, tears streaming down his cheeks. The merciless sniper Gorman spotted an opportunity and leveled his rifle at Will, but Will was able to grab Martin's gun and cell phone just in time. Desperate, he ran away before Gorman and his men could approach. Will collided with a police officer while fleeing for his life, but when the officer noticed Will had a weapon, he leveled his revolver at him, preparing to arrest him. However, before things got worse, Gorman reacted immediately and shot the cop. Will fired at Gorman, but further police officers arrived. Will fled again, sprinting desperately until he reached a towering fence. With his last ounce of strength, he vaulted over it and sought refuge in a neighboring park. As he rushed through the streets, a police officer on a horse noticed him and began after him. In a surprise turn of events, Will was able to outrun the large horse, narrowly escaping capture. He found a safe location in a public restroom to gather his breath and process what had just happened. Will returned to the crowded streets once he had calmed down. He attempted to conceal his identity by wearing a hat and sunglasses he had obtained from elsewhere. Then he decided to dispose of the gun. He cleverly prepared to get himself detained at the U.S. Embassy. Will told an official within the embassy about his father's untimely demise and the precarious situation in which his family found themselves. However, the official did not trust him and suggested he hire a lawyer instead. While they were discussing, the official's phone rang, indicating a conversation about Will. Will exited the embassy, feeling discouraged, and found Kirak waiting in her car. She introduced herself as Martin's buddy and appeared to know a lot about Will, despite his youth. Despite his reservations, Will eventually succumbed to her persuasive words because she offered to help preserve his family. As the automobile began to move, Kirak began to grill Martin about his link to the mystery bag. Will began to suspect that Kirak might not be his friend, so he feigned to be sick and leaped out of the moving transport, fleeing into the crowded streets. He boarded a bus to put more distance between himself and the city, all while carrying Martin's cell phone. The phone continued ringing, and it was the same man phoning back. Will's heart sunk when he heard his mother's frantic plea to talk to Martin. Will had to break the news to his mother that his father had died, and she burst into tears. But the man on the other end of the call was unconcerned about their anguish. He still wanted the strange briefcase. Will was determined, so he contacted his father's buddy Diego. He planned to meet Diego's niece, Lucia, at Diego's office. When he arrived at the place, he had his rifle ready before meeting Lucia, who appeared nervous. But when Kirak's agent showed up, Lucia assaulted them with a knife. This allowed Will the opportunity to join the fight and confront his adversaries. During the frantic combat, the enemy was stabbed in the back but managed to continue fighting. The conflict continued till he ran out of power and couldn't fight anymore. Eventually, in the heat of the conflict, Lucia, still on edge, leveled her revolver at Will, believing he was a threat to Diego. But Will swiftly described the perilous situation and sought Lucia for assistance in finding Diego. She reluctantly consented, and they headed to Diego's apartment. As they approached his door, they noticed the entrance was open. Will, braced for trouble, took out his rifle and cautiously entered. There he discovered Diego's lifeless body on the floor. Will hugged Lucia close to him, hoping to keep her calm and prevent her tears from exacerbating the already stressful situation. He went to investigate the faint sound coming from the kitchen. To his amazement, Kirak and Gorman were standing nearby. Will, enraged and desperate, aimed his rifle at them and demanded an explanation for his father's death. Kirak calmly revealed that Martin was considering returning the mystery bag to their adversaries, which is why he had to be eliminated. Kirak offered to help Will identify his family, but she had one condition. She needed to know about Martin's other links to the precious bag. Lucia burst into the room, shooting her gun and sparking a chaotic battle. Will and Lucia fled the gunshot, followed closely by Kirak and Gorman. They'd wound up on the rooftop and realized there was no way down. Will made a bold step and devised a plan. He put a rope around Lucia and began lowering her, when Gorman shot him in the shoulder. Lucia found refuge with a stranger who assisted her, as Will clutched the rope in agony, narrowly missing bullets before collapsing to the ground injured. Lucia got on her bike and they took off again. Will's condition was deteriorating, but they couldn't stop. Kerouac caught up with them, resulting in a major crash. Just as Kerouac was about to fire a fatal shot, a fortunate throng of people obstructed her view, giving Lucia and Will another chance to flee. Lucia took Will to a nightclub and requested a friend with medical abilities for assistance. Her companion was initially apprehensive, but Lucia persisted, and eventually her friend accepted and recruited others to assist. They examined Will's wound but found no bullet, so they had to take extraordinary steps to stop the bleeding, which caused him to pass out. Will awoke in severe discomfort after several torturous hours. While browsing his phone, Lucia came across a photo of Martin. She was stunned when Will verified Martin's death. Lucia then stated that she too knew Martin, but under a different name, Tom. Martin was her father and Will's half-brother. They both boarded a train to the location where the briefcase exchange was meant to occur. Will was still processing the fact that Martin had a secret existence. He chose to go alone, and Lucia understood. She informed him that she would be waiting at the nightclub, ready to assist him if he required it. They said their goodbyes, and Will set off on his own. When Will arrived at the place, he looked around carefully to see if he could discover their contact information. A strange man appeared alongside him and instructed him to behave normally and follow him. Will was cautious, but he did as instructed, following the stranger to a car and seated in the front seat. He was anxious to learn more about his relatives and started asking inquiries. However, the man reacted fast and viciously. He grasped Will's neck and choked him till he blacked out. When Will awoke, he was strapped to a chair and being pounded mercilessly, while he desperately sought to convince his captors that Martin had died. To his amazement, the commanders of here revealed himself as a renegade agent. It was discovered that the strange bag was part of a complex plot to expose a corrupt CIA agent. Martin and Zahir had been undercover operatives and had seized the briefcase as part of the plan. Will informed Zahir that Martin had been a victim of the CIA and KX's plots, which aimed to delete all evidence and witnesses to their complex, devious intentions. Zahir then delivered the awful truth. Will's family was still imprisoned, and their survival was dependent on the briefcase. Zahir was resolved to face Kerouac and save Will's family. He insisted that Will bring Kerouac out into the open before the covered briefcase transaction, threatening to hand over Will's family to the CIA if he failed. Will was once again overpowered, suffocated, and thrown from the car, along with a rifle. Just outside the city, he returned to Lucia's Welcome Club, where they were delighted to see one another again. They banded together and devised a method to entice Kerouac to come out into the open. While they were discreetly discussing their plans, the club owner, who was loyal to Diego, overheard them and volunteered to assist. Lucia came up with a wonderful idea. She paid for beverages with her card and left a digital trail, hoping Kerouac would fall into their trap. Gorman arrived at the club in a matter of minutes, but the astute store owner and his buddies recognized him right away, sparking a heated battle. Gorman was a skilled fighter, but they were eventually able to subdue him by using a taser. They led Gorman to the club's basement and began a hard interrogation. Will wanted to know where the briefcase was and when the secret exchange would take place, but Gorman remained silent. Will, enraged, struck Gorman mercilessly and instructed the soldiers to torture him further. Will intended for Gorman to appear to have escaped in the hopes that this would lead them to Kerouac's whereabouts. Lucia was at the wheel of a waiting automobile as they witnessed Gorman release himself and flee. Gorman got another car and sped away, with Will behind him. Gorman proceeded down an alley where he met Kerouac, and they began their escape. Will kept a tight eye on them as they brought him to an underground parking facility. Will instructed Lucia to remain in the car while he followed them further. Will observed from a distance as Kerouac spoke with possible purchasers in the dimly illuminated parking lot. However, things changed when Zahir and his group came, instructing Will to back off and surrender. Will yelled, wanting to know where his captured family was. The noise reached Kerouac, who killed the buyers. All hell broke loose as the rogue agents began shooting, resulting in a violent shootout. Amidst the confusion, Gorman saw an opportunity and snatched the odd briefcase before jumping into a waiting automobile. Will, desperate to get it back, ran after him on foot. He caught up to Gorman, and they fought fiercely over the important object. In the midst of their conflict, a Moscow agent intervened and shot Gorman. Lucia crashed into Gorman's automobile, resulting in a horrific collision. Gorman, who was severely hurt, expressed surprise that Will would be the one to take his own life. Carrick arrived in her car and dashed to the abandoned briefcase on the ground. She began shooting at Will, causing him to take shelter. Then she snatched the case and ran, leaving Gorman dead nearby. Carrick reprimanded Will, calling him an amateur, and sped away. Will and Lucia began after her fiercely, but Carrick realized they were after her, and a high-speed pursuit ensued. Carrick attempted to flee by driving through a park, but Will was determined to pursue her. He approached closer, so Carrick began shooting at him. Will did not give up, but he did step back for a moment. Carrick felt she had lost them, but then she became trapped in traffic. Will had spotted her, but she had no idea. He drove directly at her, causing a large collision with a nearby store. A throng gathered, and Carrick exited the car and began firing, not only at Will but also at innocent bystanders. Will and Lucia managed to take control of another car and drive away, despite Carrick's dogged pursuit. Their cars collided hard, and both flipped over dramatically. Carrick, holding the precious briefcase, emerged and approached Will and Lucia, who were trying to move. In a difficult moment, Will attempted to grab for his gun, but Carrick mocked him. She was going to shoot him when a gunshot went off. In the midst of the turmoil, Zahir and his fellow agents arrived and immediately secured Will, Lucia, and the important briefcase. Zahir led the way, guiding Will to a crucial meeting with his family, whom he thought he'd lost forever. Along the way, Zahir revealed something surprising. Despite Martin's murky past, he would be proud of Will's strength. Their reunion was extremely emotional, with many tears and hugs as the family's damaged relationships were magically restored. They went to see Lucia in the hospital, where Lori and Josh greeted their new friend cordially. Their brief era of calm did not endure long. A CIA agent approached Will and gave him a passport, providing him a means to return home where he was secure. Will was still intrigued about what was inside the bag, but the official did not provide a direct answer. Instead, he intimated that in order to find out, Will would have to become more involved with the CIA. So the lesson of the story is that when life offers you a wacky combination of spies, hidden briefcases, and family reunions, remember that laughter is the finest spy gadget, and a group embrace can deter even the most clever criminal.